Good morning, business owners. Mike Bosma, your business savvy CPA, come to you from Studio B. And that's Studio Bosma Business Center. Just still working out the kinks, but generally things are clicking right along. Props to producer Greg, now at over 17,000 YouTube views in a little over a month. So that's fun. I didn't know you can do that kind of thing in YouTube in such a short amount of time. But we call it Bosma on Business each and every Saturday, 60 minutes of action-packed business adventure. Today, no difference. Nika Hsiao started a mobile notary service. And I think as we talk about some of the things that she's accomplished in business, you'll be inspired as well. It could be a situation that we make a little side hustle, your main hustle. But without further ado, Nika, welcome to Bosma on Business.
Hi, thank you.
So we get this thing rolling by a little bit about your business. How'd you get into the mobile notary business?
Kind of like what you said, it started off as a side hustle. So it was something while I was still in my corporate HR career, I was exploring things that I could do, being a new mom on the side that could bring in. My goal was grocery money. If I could bring in enough to pay for the groceries, that would make me happy. And ultimately, I landed on the notary business as something that I identified pretty low capital to start, pretty low barrier to entry, and I can do it on my own time. Especially, I was interested in the remote side of it, that I could do things from home. And so got my commission. To be honest, didn't do very much with it the first 2 years because I was just so busy with my corporate job. And then in early 2024, I took the leap and decided to make the side hustle the main hustle and have been working on it ever since.
Okay, so fun. So there's certain parts of running a business that you have to figure out. The first one is how much do you charge for what you do, and is it enough? So how'd you figure out pricing?
Yeah, so with pricing, with notary work, there's typically state limits on what you can charge for the actual notarizations, and then there's other things where you have some wiggle room. So when you're doing in-person mobile signings, it's the travel fee that you can negotiate with your clients. With the remote notarization, there's less of wiggle room because even though it's been around for 10 years, it's still fairly new. And so that is the limitation there. But for me, it's having the ability to have that flexibility. And now that I have all my systems in place, it does make sense. And ultimately, as I grew into the business, my focus is on more B2B clients. So other business owners that have clients that have notarizations. And with that, when there is, in a sense, someone in the middle, if you're not billing directly to the client, there's more wiggle room in terms of pricing as well.
Because when you need something done, you just need it done.
Absolutely.
And that's where I remember, Nika, years ago, I had somebody come in, loyal listener, and they wanted me to value their business, and they did traffic studies. Okay, they have to be done. If you're going to build, you got to do a traffic study. So, but he made $1 million doing traffic studies. And I'm like, help me understand. So it's like, how do you make $1 million doing traffic studies? And he says, well, you have your, I charge $5,000 for a traffic study. I'm like doing the math. I'm like, that's a lot. How do you, how many employees do you have? All that. I'm like, oh no, it's just me and the other guy. And, he does the drafting. I do the final read and, and he goes, oh, you're trying to, okay, it's $5,000, but we go to the back of the line. If you want to go to the front of the line where I have to work nights and weekends because I promised all this other stuff to other people, that's $50,000. And he said sometimes these developers would come in and they would need to, need the traffic study. They're, hey, we need this study. They don't want to do the traffic study until basically they're far enough along in their development activities, and then they're scheduled for the city council, in 3 weeks. Okay, hey, can you get this done in 3 weeks? Like, no, it's a 3-month lag. Well, what's it going to, I have to have it done. Otherwise, I'll go to the back of the line. I'm going to be months and months and months out, for $100 million project. That's a lot. And so on a kind of almost a lark, he said, it's 50,000 if you want it next week. And they said, okay.
Yeah.
So, it's just, and that's interesting as a business owner, because you're trying to find out that delicate balance between, you never take advantage of people, right? If they're in a bad spot or hard spot, you don't monetize that. But also, if you're going to work nights and weekends, take, all those things, okay, then there should be a premium, and then I get to decide if I want to take it on or not. So how much? What's the biggest travel fee you ever charged?
Currently, my travel fee that I'm charging is 75.
But if you had to go notarize something in the Bay Area or Las Vegas, you got to get on a plane. I mean, that's a lot of time.
It is. I think at that point, I'd probably talk to the client and say, if you want, we can do it remotely and
Right.
everyone can do it from wherever they're at. But if they really needed me there in person, I would absolutely make it happen. Kind of like you said with your
Mhm.
example, I probably wouldn't charge 50,000, but it would be definitely
Right.
a premium charge
Be a
to make
premium,
it worth
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's talking about premiums and upcharges. There's a couple different I guess I don't know, call them actors or business owners I follow. One of the guys, he cleans jets for a living, right? So and you can get these are private jets. So obviously people are very well off to afford a jet, but he goes and says this is what I would charge, but then when they drop in at the last minute and they're like, I need it get it done by tomorrow. And he says, so he has an expedite fee. And you look at that as a percentage and you're like, okay, I can take a small vacation because I work the weekend. Okay, let's do it. But I think a lot of times business owners, they lose sight of that. Hey, I'm really doing you a solid, but I got to talk about it up front. Nobody ever wants to get the surprise in the back. But then, yeah, like you said, it's like, hey, this is what it's going to cost. Do you want in? And then, sometimes you get to travel to some pretty fun places or do it remote, but
Yeah.
traveling's more fun, right?
Yeah. That would be
So,
great.
yeah, in on camera, Nika, and I guess in the studio, out of the studio, I don't even know how to say it anymore because it's video and radio. It's a simulcast. But Nika Hsiao talking about her journey in becoming a mobile notary. And so, Nika, I'm curious, like when you got advice, you've been doing this for a couple of years now, kind of more full time or full time. What kind of corporate structure did you pick
For my business,
for your business? Yeah.
so it was definitely kind of a little bit of trial and error with an idea of what I wanted to do in mind. At the time, well, actually, for the last probably 3 to 5 years, becoming a notary has been like the new get rich quick thing online
Okay.
versus selling on Amazon. It's now like become a notary and you can make $100 to $200 an hour through loan signings. And that was something that initially I looked into. Ultimately, that didn't work with what I wanted to build for myself and my family. And also, the market here is very saturated with mobile notaries chasing loan signings. And so that was a little bit of a pivot there. I decided that I wanted to focus on the remote notary space because there's not a lot of notaries right now that have differentiated themselves and specializing in that. A lot of notaries don't even have a website, or if they do, it's not very good. So building up that platform and the way that I do my follow ups with clients. And essentially, the first year was a lot of building the foundation of what it would look like once I am able to grow. I think most businesses just start off doing the work, get really busy, and then they're like looking at, okay, now we need the structure to support the amount of volume that we had. I did it a little bit the opposite way, where I built the structure, and now in the year two, it's looking for that volume. And so right now in the notary world, what happens a lot is once you have been a notary for about a year or two, many of them get into the notary training space. And it's because, from the state's perspective, each state is very different. There's that some could have training, some could have tests, some you don't need to do anything and you can get your commission. And so there's that gap in the market where a lot of notaries are noticing that. And so then they create their own training of how to become a notary, how to notarize these types of documents. And all the new notaries are buying into them. I know that because I bought into some of them just because of fear of managing people's legal documents. And it feels a little bit what you said, where it's almost, from a business owner, it makes sense to take advantage of it, but then also feels a little bit predatory. And so the way that I have my business set up is, once I get those B2B partnerships and I have that volume, what I would like to do is do it a little bit differently, where I reach out and source my subcontractors would be the ones doing my notary work based off my HR skills, interviewing how they are. And then I would teach them how to become a notary via SOPs, everything like that. So it's like all you would need. So let's say it's another mom who's looking to make grocery money on the side. I'd say, hey, if you would like to come and work for me, you would just need to spend this much to get your commission and all your licenses, and then not a single penny on any training because I would train you. But then the caveat would be that you would have to do it my way. And I think the way that I do things as a notary is very customer service oriented. It's a lot of reading the room of what a client needs. Are they someone who likes to chat? Are they someone that just wants to get it done? And then that follow up, and then being able to provide that. So then from a standpoint of someone who is looking to make side hustle money, you're not getting your commission and then realizing that you need to spend thousands of dollars more for the structure or for the training. It would truly be, this is how much it would cost for a potential amount of this work that you would get, but then you'd have to do the training through me, and then I would be able to manage a little bit more about the customer service that my clients get. Because right now, once notaries become big enough, they become trainers. After that, they become what's called a signing service, where they source the business and then essentially they put out the business into these notary job boards, and it's whoever can click the fastest will get the job. And then if the notary does a bad job, then they're put on the blacklist for that company. That's a lot of variables there for me in terms of the relationships that I'm trying to build with my clients that I'm not comfortable with. I want to make sure that my clients get the amount of service that I expect from my company. And so that was a little bit of how I built out the structure. Like I said, that part was always in my mind of what I wanted to do, but pivoting from, let's say, loan signings, which is kind of what I got into the business for, to some of the work that, or the type of documents that I handle now, that has happened organically.
Okay. And did you go become a corporation or LLC?
I have an LLC from a previous business that I tried starting in 2020 that didn't end up working out. And so I just utilized my LLC.
And so your LLC's NBN Signings Notary Services.
No, my LLC is called Palace Ventures, and then
Okay.
MBN is a DBA under that.
Is a DBA. Okay. Yeah. So, and I think those are things where, you got your LLC from your last gig, you use it for the next gig. And in studio or on video, Nika Hsiao, when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the tax tips and tricks to be able to make your side hustle very tax efficient. It's called Bosma on Business.
What if you had some money waiting for you at the IRS? Money you could use to fix up the house, tune up the car, get a little something for the family, or save for a rainy day. If you worked and didn't make much money last year, find out about the Earned Income Tax Credit at irs.gov. It makes life a little easier.
Welcome back. Your host, Mike Bosma. We call it Bosma on Business. Nika Hsiao is talking about her journey into entrepreneurship. Starts off with a side hustle, had that LLC on the shelf and said, hey, we'll use that. Then did a DBA to get to NBN Signings Notary Services. I'm always curious when people, NBN Notary Signing Services. So how'd you come up with a business name?
Many notaries typically just use their name as their business name, signed by Sarah, just their name and notary. I remember when I was thinking about it, I didn't want to use my name. It was something where I just don't necessarily feel like I need to have my name out there, but then also just from a scaling standpoint, I wanted it to be something that could be scalable. And if it said like just Nika, and then I had someone who wasn't Nika, there might be some confusion from the client standpoint. And so then it was a friend of mine, we were having conversations, and her business name is Decorated by Diamond. And she's like, what about Notarized by Nika? I was like, oh, okay. But again, didn't want my name in it. So I was like, well, the initials of it, NBN, Notarized by Nika, Signings, Notary Services. I like that. So that's where it came about. So I know that my name is in there, but it's not like front and center. And it's a business name that I think has that longevity where I could have anybody working for me, and they could still say, yeah, I work for MBN Signings.
Because that's where a lot of times is that connect the dots, right? So what I'm going to call my business, then I have an entity around it. Most of the time, it's the same as the business name. You went the DBA route, fine. But then that's all tied into the website. Because what you want is the ability for somebody to, oh yeah, I need to connect with Nika. What's her company name? And then they'll Google it. And so you want to be able to have that front and center when somebody's looking for you. So what'd you end up deciding on the website?
Website is MBN Signings.
Okay. Which is a lot of times the initials will get you out of website purgatory. There's what I wanted for Keystone is keystone.com, and it's available. So we sent in an offer to get that domain, and I knew it was gonna be a pretty popular domain, so I offered $10,000, right? And the person that owned it responded and said, "Don't bother replying unless it has 2 commas in it." I'm like, whoa,
Oh,
my
wow.
God. Okay. I guess we're keystone.cpa. We're fine. People can find us all the time. But yeah, I was trying to get the website and where it's easily findable. As long as everybody remembers NBN, you're golden, Nika. So and then so you start with the LL. Any thoughts of the tax benefits of S corporation?
Have thought about that. I've talked to my CPA and bookkeeper on it. I am not at the place where it makes sense for me yet from like the profit standpoint, but we have that threshold and we have that goal that once I get to that point, then we would look at changing over to S Corp.
Right. So it's for the benefits of our listeners. The benefits of S corporation, basically the tax deductions are the same. But if you have income, and I would say significant income, usually we start having this discussion with people and they get about $100,000 of net income to say, well, is there some advantage being an S corporation? And all that savings is baked around self-employment tax, 15.3% self-employment tax. So that's where the deal is. As an S corporation, you have to pay yourself a reasonable wage. You can go to salary.com to figure out what, if you got hired on as a notary, what you'd have to pay yourself. That's pretty easy to track down. And then, pay yourself that. And then the residual all gets thrown into this bucket of not taxable for self-employment tax. But the thing that a lot of people get wrong, Nika, is they elect S too early and they look at how much they saved in self-employment tax. But what I've not found a CPA yet that's talking about what you lose in qualified business income deduction, QBID. So if you make $100,000 in your notary business, it's a single member LLC. It's great news. You don't have to file a tax return. It goes on Schedule C on your Form 1040. But on the other part of that is at $100,000, you don't need wages. At $100,000, you're going to pay tax on $80,000. Again, a $20,000 deduction for this QBID thing, Internal Revenue Code Section 199 Cap A. Like, okay, so I'm only paying tax on, I'm paying $100,000 self-employment tax, but only $80,000 I'm getting on taxable income. Well, all of a sudden you have to, making $100,000, I pay myself $50,000, I get $50,000 I don't pay self-employment tax on. The loss of the QBID is more than what and you saved the self-employment tax. So you just shot yourself in the foot. So we don't like to have people shoot themselves in the foot, right? So that's, Nick, maybe that was your journey. Like, okay, this is how this works. But the one thing that I encourage people is when people start, like Nika, they have a side hustle. Now it becomes your main hustle. Now you're looking at really scaling this thing, and that's great. But one of the things when you start having tax problems and you start, you're like, how much of you can get into the 30-40% effective tax rate pretty easily. That's just because between self-employment tax and regular income tax. And then you always have that thought, what should I throw at my business in terms of deductions? Right? And I call those owner's discretionary expenses. And all I beg our listeners to do is please keep track of them in a way. If you're in QuickBooks Online, code them not as normal expenses, code them as other deductions. So why do you think that's a good idea, Nika?
I'll be honest with you. I think I recognized pretty early that it's important for me to have a team of people that know all these things that you're talking about. I have like a general concept when I was looking at the LLC S Corps. I've heard about the advantages, but at the end of the day, I'm not that professional. And that's why I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who know that and that you can trust about your business. And so that would be a question that I would probably ask Jeff and Lisa, who's on my team, and be like, hey, give me some guidelines, give me some boundaries here of what I need to do that would be best served for my business right now and as I move forward. So I don't know that I can answer that.
No, okay, no, yeah, and that's where it's fun, right? Because a lot of times what I'll encourage my entrepreneur clients to do is to just connect, and there's a couple different things you can do. I use Intuit, which is Quicken is their product, but there's other things that are out there that are free. And what we do is we connect your personal bank account and your personal credit cards to that software. Intuit is the one that I use most, but there's others. And then download 3 months of activity, a personal. And that's had nothing to do with the business, right? But then you see what your personal spend is. And then you're like, and talk to your CPA. It's like, but have it laid out for them. Don't make them go through the box of receipts. Please, for the love of everything holy and good. Don't do that to these people. They're tired. It's 10:15. They're burning the midnight oil. But give it to them in some logical, organized fashion and say, okay, here's my expenses. Okay. Then ask, of these expenses, what can I deduct? Right. And if you do that for the benefit of your accountant, there's CPAs, enrolled agents, tax attorneys, only people that you should be talking about this stuff to, because they're the only professionals that are obligated by the Internal Revenue Code to perform in a certain manner. Like you talked, Nika, about what the duties owed, right? Your commission you received, and when you did that with the state of Nevada, they said these are the duties. Like you don't backdate documents, that kind of stuff. So same thing in professional services. So and so the deal is when you put that sheet, those sheets, that Excel sheet of 3 months of expense. Number one, for you, you're going to say, I didn't realize I spent that much. But number two, probably more importantly,
I'm a little scared,
right? You're like, you don't, put your head in the sand. It's better until you see it. Then you're like, how did that happen? But when you do it, then you just ask your CPA, what of these can I expense? And then when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the more nuanced ways to maximize that expense and some of the things you need to do if you're provided an auto by your employer. It's Bosma on Business when we come back.
In life, things aren't scripted.
If you're an athlete, we need people like you and translate those skills to officiating.
You can get a lot out of it.
It happens in every town, in every game.
We never have a perfect game, but the rewards always outweigh the negativities.
Welcome back to Bosma on Business. Your host, Mike Bosma. Talked to Nika Hsiao about her startup that's growing. I maybe even love, Nika, that you're taking a very long view of building your business into something that's scalable. I think many people make the mistake of building it all around them. And that's where when I air quotes retired from CLA, I had Bosma Group CPAs before I went into CLA for 4 years. And then we actually paid somebody to find us a name because it wasn't going to be Bosma anything on the new one, because we wanted to be able to grow and scale it so that the people in the firm were the value, not just the name partner. Right. And so that's really resonated with people. And probably the thing that's from a recruiting perspective, the things that resonated the most is that when you go to our webpage, it had people in order by their last names on the website instead of just, the principals, and so I just, from a recruiting perspective, people were like, yeah, I want it to be about the team, not about, some egomaniac. So it's like, which I agree. I wouldn't want to work for an egomaniac, but nobody does. So, but what is, before the break, we were talking about those expenses that could be maybe taken advantage of. And I just want to hit a couple of them just to give you some tips and little tidbits, Nika, so that you can go back to your professionals and hit them with this stuff. So have you ever heard of this thing called the Augusta Rule?
I have not.
Okay. If I troll other CPAs, I admit it, I'm that guy. But I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. So, the Masters golf tournament, there's this portion of the code section that says if you rent your personal residence for 14 days or less, that you don't have to report the revenue that you were paid, right? So, So that's where, you work from home. So, you get what's called the office and home deduction. So it doesn't apply to you. But if you did the S corporation thing, it might. So it's just, but usually you're in your office every day, so you're going to be way more than 14 days. So you're going to report the revenue. But a lot of people, if like for my birthday, for example, when we had about 60 people over for my 60th birthday. Appreciate all my friends supporting me. But they were like, oh, I thought you'd have this like at a restaurant or bar or something. Like, no, I did it at my house so that I can have my corporation pay me personally for my 1 of 14 days for using the space. It's tax free, right? No, so that, it's just a little thing, but you have to have a business purpose you have to value it reasonably. You can't pay yourself $1 million. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's ordinary necessary. It was just, called the Augusta Rule. Actually, on my YouTube channel, I have a whole segment about the Augusta Rule and how people make mistakes on it. But you got to have a car, Nika. You're a mobile notary. I mean, you got to. So how do you deduct expenses on the car? What are you doing? You're writing a car off, or do you even know? I mean,
To be honest with you, I don't know what we're doing right now. I do know I'm excited about all the things that you're talking about. I do have some experience in that, to the extent where my parents were immigrants and then they ended up owning their own business in Tahoe. And so my mom, I should have probably paid more attention, but my mom would talk to me about the different expenses. Every once in a while, I would help her with her books before I went off to college. And so I do know that there are ways that you can get creative. And I remember there were certain things that we put on the business credit card versus the personal credit card, as trying to decipher that. They did a lot of leasing because that made a lot more sense for their business with leasing cars. And from the personal experience that I had, leasing cars just didn't make sense to me. But then once it was explained to me from a business standpoint, I'm like, okay, I think where I'm at in my business, because I took that giant leap from the corporate income and corporate HR to start this business, and we're kind of building the foundation. Right now, it's a lot of almost proof of concept to myself and my family. You need to make sure that this is solid. We're, breaking even, making a profit. And then once I feel really comfortable, and maybe this is where I could have a little push, then talking with my team and be like, okay, now how do we get creative? Now that I'm having the income come in, what do we need to do? So I haven't done a lot of that right now. We're using the car that I've had for the last, I think, 12 years. But eventually, I'm excited about what I can do in terms of maybe getting a car for the business.
Well, no, actually, that's exactly it. Well, first off, the reason I reached into my wallet, I was going to pay Nika. Here you go. But this is a little hack that I did. I've never seen this, from anybody else, but it's actually pretty funny if you think about it. So I don't know if you can read that. You might have to zoom in. It's his Keystone, right? So I have a little laminated thing. So I know, okay, that's my Keystone card. This is my personal card, my condo card, because I'm the worst, right? I was creating a whole bunch of accounting mess for myself, being an accountant, right? All the people back at the office like, just use the right card, boss. So I'm like, okay, so that way I got different cards for different things. And I'm like, okay, what is this for? And that's like that. Making the decision at the point of purchase, if it's a business expense or not, is whether or not it's going to generally be upheld if you're audited. So you're like, oh, yeah, this is my process. And you can make mistakes. Okay, but generally, this is what I try and do. And that's where, like, if you got the 12-year-old car, Nika, so this is the secret. This is the hack on that, right? So I'm going to nerd out on you for a second. So just don't hold it against me.
I love it. Geek out on me.
But a lot of people may say, like, what'd you pay for the car? What's it worth when you made, a couple years ago when you placed it in service? Well, it's worth thousands, not tens of thousands, or maybe it's whatever it is. Right? And people are like, hey, just write the thing off in the first year. No, don't, because the cost to operate it are far less per mile than it's costing that you can get reimbursed from, using the IRS standard rate, which is like almost 60 cents now a mile. So you're like, it costs you 30 cents a mile, right? Including depreciation. And that's where I'm like, if, that's why let me say, I have 2 electric vehicles in my auto fleet in my business, right? But I didn't write them off because it costs so little to operate them, right? So you just cost nothing to operate them, but I get reimbursed almost 60 cents a mile, right? And that's all tax free to me. So you just can, you forego a deduction on the front end, but I'm making way more on the back end every year, right? So that's where if you're, it ain't sexy, right? You're like, oh, I get the big SUVs. Like, no, they consume wealth, Nika. Like leeches on the business ship, or barnacles on the business ship. They just suck wealth away because they depreciate in value. They cost a lot, interest, all the rest of it. So you're like, no, use the 12-year-old car, right? It's fine. But then take the mileage on it every year. Instead of writing off the whatever it was when you converted it, you'll make all the money on the backside. And then what it does is, what the thing I just love about it, Nika, then you can say, like, how much does it really cost me to operate the thing? And then he's like, should I get a new one? I don't know. What's it going to cost? And we're building business and value and wealth for people. And those normal tax, I guess, tips where, just buy a big car, write it off. How much you're going to lose tens and tens of thousands of dollars on that car. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. But you stay with the old car as long as you can.
I love it. I think that actually, now that you say that, that's what we're doing, is that I'm doing the mileage. Then I think growing up with my parents also, and all of the trials and tribulations that they went through with their business, I don't need the big fancy things. I just want whatever is going to be the most advantageous for my business and for my life. So I love that.
Right. Well, and that's where, you look at the number one limiter for companies to grow and scale is capital, right? You got to invest in people, processes, all the rest of it. So yeah, if you cannot invest it in, the plant, the auto, and invest it in your business, you're going to get a way better return. So Nika, you've had some ideas about putting connections for business owners together. Great idea. What's the next great idea?
Yeah. So, my one venture back in 2020 that didn't come to fruition was selling on Amazon. I was part of a community there. Like I said, with the notary world, there's a lot of those trainers, and they all have communities of people that they're training how to do the thing. And then once you get in there, it usually splits off into two camps of people. You have the people who are just trying to learn how to do the thing, and then you have other people who are like me, where it's like, okay, now I'm trying to start a business. How do I do it? And typically with those questions, either they'd get answered in a way that was just kind of very general, or just completely crickets. There was no answers, because that's not what the person that you're paying specializes in. Also, with just the in-person networking that I was doing, I found that there was a lot of times where we check in with each other, as you recognize everyone, how's it going, how's business this month, and it would be very common for conversations to go, it's going good, I just wasted thousands of dollars on Google ads, and then everyone in the room is like, oh, good for you, welcome to the club, almost like a rite of passage that everyone does this. And the way my brain works is, if this is a common thing that all business owners go through, why are we all going through it and not helping each other in a way where we mitigate some of those challenges and pitfalls? And then about a year into the business, I learned more about SBDC, SBA, all those free resources that are available for small business owners. But if you don't know that they're available, you're not going to utilize them. And so there's been this thought where, once I get my notary business solid, where it's running without me, everything that I've built the last 2 years, my passion would be into essentially like a small business community, where it would be broken up. And this is where my HR hat would come into. There would be business phases. Let's say you're in the phase of just developing your business, your logo, your name, that brainstorming part, or you're in the phase of the business formation, what makes sense, LLC, Corp, whatever, getting all the licenses. And then as you enter into the community, it would be that there would be some sort of testing to put you into a cohort of probably 6. HR, they always say, like the pizza party, 6 is the best group of people. And one of the tests that I like, I've taken a lot of those personality tests. I don't know if you've heard about it. I'm a big fan, is the 6 Working Geniuses by the Table Group, where it breaks up how you approach things, projects, from beginning to finish. So whether it's just the conception of an idea to the execution. And so breaking people up into what their strengths are, because that's another thing, coming from the corporate world to doing a small business on my own, I'm used to having a team. I'm very much the type of person where I know what my strengths are, I know what my weaknesses are, and I always make friends whose strengths are my weaknesses, because I don't want to do the thing. I know this person will do the thing. And so being able to kind of create the cohort of 6 other people who are maybe trying to start their small business, put them in the right business phase, and then move each other along through that. So if you have someone who is typically the person who likes to execute, then they would be the person who is setting the deadlines for the group. If you have the person who likes to brainstorm, then maybe they would run the brainstorming. It's just utilizing people's strengths
Yeah, the
as you
concept
move
of
through.
the concept of the cohort, right? So
Yes.
we're better together, right? Well, hey, that's
Yes.
our slogan for the whole business, right?
Yeah.
Business brokerage, CPA, wealth advisory. So
Right.
no, that's awesome. So yeah, we're kind of mixing your passion for the HR part of it, then do basically business development. Awesome. Well, so when we come back, Nika Hsiao is going to talk to us about the number one thing she wished she knew before she started business. You heard it here and only here. It's called Bosma in business when we come back.
I was born with a congenital heart defect and almost died. But thanks to research funded by the American Heart Association, I had heart surgery that saved my life. Learn more at helpheart.org.
Welcome back to Bosma in Business. Your host, Mike Bosma. If you missed last week's show, Mark Hermsmeyer talked about the 6 pillars needed to be able to successfully sell your business. Next week's show, Taylor Swanson, Northern Nevada Window Tinting, talked about their journey into entrepreneurship. Of course, I'll give them all these tax tips and tricks on the down low. In studio, Nika Hsiao is talking about her mobile notary service. So, Nika, we always finish the show with that number one thing, the big aha, the big takeaway. And usually I call it the School of Hard Knocks, but whatever your journey would be self-described as. If there's something you wish you knew before you started business, what would it be?
What I wish I knew before I started business would have been just the resources that are available to me as someone who wants to start a business, and then building the team. How important that is to surround yourself with people who are professionals and experts in their field to help advise how you set everything up. That being said, obviously anything that I set up differently and wanted to change, you can change and pivot. But it came with a lot of wasted time and money that I could have saved had I consulted with the right people to get to build it the right way from the get-go, instead of building it, taking apart, rebuilding it. Oh my gosh, I need to add this section, whatever. Right. So that's what I wish I knew, is just being able to know that there's that community out there and tap into those resources. But here's the thing, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so that's been a lot of my journey, is figuring out what I don't know and reaching out to the people and be like, what should I know? I may not be able to ask all the right questions because I don't even know what questions to ask. So what should I know? What should I consider? And how do I move through? And then another piece of that is shutting out some of the white noise. There's going to be a lot of people with a lot of opinions, and sometimes you have to go with your gut and just be like, I get it. Thank you for that great advice. It might have worked for you. It's not for me. So that kind of contradicted each other in a little bit, but that would be what I wish I knew.
And it's interesting, Nika, right? I mean, you're right. You go into business and everybody's an expert. Everybody, yes. Right? Oh, this is how you do it. Yeah. Well, that's how you did it. And that's fine. I mean, but and I'll give you an example, right? Payroll, right? So you hire your first person, right? Put them on payroll. Should you do payroll yourself or should you outsource it? Almost everybody would tell you to outsource it, right? So they take care of the filings, if there's penalties, The problem is, right, and I'm not saying that's not a good idea. I'm not, but the problem is you lose visibility into what's going on in payroll land, right? Yeah. So there's value on the front end to take an interest. Like, how does payroll work? Do we have insurance? Do we have a retirement plan? Is now the time to think about these things? And it probably is, because the best time to have the best retirement plan on the planet is before you hire your first employee. That's just true, right? Because that way you can make it all beneficial for the owner, put it in your retirement account, and you don't have to share it with your employees. And especially for some of the more, to call it dollar-rich plans, like defined benefit plans, where kind of like a pension, you can put, like I was telling somebody yesterday, they were going to hire their first employee, and it's like, you're going to get this defined benefit plan, and you're going to vest 100% today, and then before you hire that employee, and they can put in $300,000 a year into their retirement plan. And they're like, I could do that. I go, you can. You can. But obviously they're cash flow positive. They can do all that stuff. But it wouldn't make sense to have that plan if they had to give the $300,000 to their employee, right? It's not that we don't want to take care of our employees, all that kind of stuff. It's just we have to be pragmatic. And all we're trying to do from a business owner perspective is take it out of one pocket, put it in the other pocket, right? Still yours, still in your dominion and control. And so I think those are things where we lose because we're just trying to see if we have a viable business. No, but I think, Nika, I'm excited to hear about your business. That's awesome. But yeah, it's
Thank you.
not just I'm doing, it's like I'm actually building it to scales. Make sure as you scale it, this year, Keystone, we got, on the, Inc. 5000 fastest growing businesses list. Maybe you'll hit it too. Let us know. We'll have you back.
Great.
All right. So
Yeah.
those are all good times. So again, if you need to go hear those prior shows, go to Keystone. I'm sorry, don't go to Keystone. Go to bosmaonbusiness.com or even better, my producer's scowling at me, go to Bosma on Business YouTube channel. That's where the magic is. If you want the newsletter, go to Keystone. I'm going to stop talking. Nika, thank you so much for coming, sharing your journey. Wish you well as you grow and scale your business. And of course, if for the benefit of our listeners, if you need some of that help, give us a call, 775-786-4900. Ping me with an email, mbosma@keystone.cpa. Until next week, business owners, keep that business engine humming. It's called Bosma on Business.